4 shots. That's all she said she needed. Standing there in worn hiking boots, brown hair tied back under a faded ball cap, gray eyes scanning everything without seeming to move at all.
The route here is
One
heavily
rifle
guarded.
case at her
Understood.
feet.
What's our approach?
We flank from the
27 years
east, use
old,
the terrain.
5'6", maybe 128 pounds soaking wet. And every man in that operations center wanted to laugh.
How's the zero?
Commander Jacob Stone didn't
Solid,
laugh.
sir. No shifts.
He was too busy
Good.
watching
Stay
his people
frosty.
die. 68 hours. That's how long they'd been counting ammunition like poker chips at a table where the house always wins and you're running out of ways to bluff. Fort Sentinel, West Texas, September 2019. A place so remote that God himself might have trouble finding it on a map. 94 American soldiers, 280 cartel gunmen, backed by foreign fighters who'd learned their trade in places where mercy was just another word for weakness. 30% ammunition remaining. Water rationed to half a canteen per day. 7 wounded in medical, 2 critical. And the quick reaction force, the cavalry, the only thing standing between survival and a massacre, grounded by a dust storm 6 hours away. 6 hours they didn't have. Stone stood over the tactical display and stared at the red markers surrounding the fort like a noose tightening around a throat. Each marker was a gun. Each gun pointed at his people. Every hour that passed, the noose pulled tighter. He was 56 years old, career infantry, 3 combat deployments. He'd buried friends. He'd written letters to mothers. He'd made decisions that cost lives and decisions that saved them. But standing in that operations center with the Texas sun beating down on corrugated metal and the smell of dust and diesel and fear hanging in the air like a physical presence, Jacob Stone couldn't find a decision that didn't end with body bags. The door opened. Lieutenant Marcus Reeves walked in with a radio handset and an expression that said the world had just gotten stranger. "Sir, Northgate reports someone walked through the perimeter." Stone turned. "Walk through?" "On foot. Single individual. No vehicle. No escort. Female. Just appeared at the wire. Through 280 hostiles. That's what the gate guard said, sir. They can't explain it either." Stone grabbed his sidearm and moved. Because nothing good walks through a kill zone. She was standing inside the gate when he arrived, and everything about her was wrong in ways that made Stone's combat instincts scream. Early 20s, maybe late 20s, small, compact. The kind of frame that looked fragile until you noticed the way she held herself. Civilian hiking gear layered over a plate carrier that had seen real use. Scuffed boots with the kind of wear that comes from miles, not style. Calloused hands. A battered rifle case sat at her feet like a loyal dog. She looked like someone who'd taken a wrong turn on the Appalachian Trail and ended up in a war zone by accident. But her eyes, gray, cold as winter steel, scanning, cataloging, processing every face, every weapon, every angle of approach without appearing to move at all. Those weren't hiker's eyes. Those were predator's eyes. "Commander Stone." Not a question. She already knew who he was. "Who the hell are you, and how did you walk through my perimeter?" "Sarah Mitchell, Colonel Marcus Webb sent me." The name hit Stone like a fist to the sternum. Marcus Webb, Fort Benning, 1985. The toughest instructor he'd ever served under. The man who'd broken him down and rebuilt him into the officer he became. Webb had retired 15 years ago. Stone hadn't spoken to him in over a decade. "Webb sent you," he repeated slowly. "He's at Walter Reed Medical Center. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Maybe 2 months left." She said it flat, clinical, like she was reading coordinates off a map. "He's been watching your situation through satellite feed. He sent me because help through official channels isn't coming fast enough." Stone looked at Sergeant Daniel Cross, who'd materialized at the edge of the group with his hand resting near his sidearm. Cross was 55, 2 weeks from retirement, a Desert Storm veteran who'd survived things that shouldn't be survivable. His instincts were screaming. Stone could see it in the way the old sergeant's weight shifted to the balls of his feet. Lieutenant Reeves pushed forward. 34, West Point graduate, the kind of officer who measured worth in credentials and rank structure. Sir, with all due respect, who is this woman? No unit patch, no rank insignia, no authorization I can see. Stone held up a hand. Miss Mitchell, I appreciate whatever Colonel Webb thinks he's doing, but we're surrounded by 280 hostiles with fortified positions on 3 ridges. The QRF is grounded, and you— He caught himself before the smirk became visible, but the damage was done. Everyone in earshot saw it. You walked in here with a rifle case and expect me to believe you're the solution. Cross muttered something under his breath. It sounded like camping trip. Reeves was more direct. Commander, they sent us a girl? With a backpack? This is a war zone, not a nature hike, sweetheart. Sarah Mitchell didn't flinch, didn't bristle, didn't defend herself. She just looked at them with those gray eyes and said, 4 rounds, sir. That's all I need. Precision application at extended range. I take out their command chain, their coordination collapses. Your QRF has time to reach you. The operations center went dead silent, the kind of silence that follows a gunshot, the kind that tells you something fundamental just shifted. Reeves froze with a water bottle halfway to his mouth. Cross's fingers tightened on his sidearm. Not because Sarah was a threat, because what she just said was either the most insane thing anyone had uttered at Fort Sentinel, or it was real. Stone stared at her. 4 rounds. 4 commanders. Kill the brain, the body stops moving. You know that, sir. Colonel Webb taught you the same thing he taught me. Stone was still processing when Cross stepped forward. Sir, you realize what she's saying? She's claiming she can hit individual targets at ranges that would make a scout sniper team think twice. Alone, with a bolt-action rifle. I heard what she said, Marcus. And you're considering it? I'm considering the alternative, which is 94 dead Americans. That shut Cross up. Not because it was harsh, because it was true. Sarah let them argue. She stood perfectly still, weight balanced, rifle case at her feet, watching them with the patience of someone who'd spent years waiting for men to finish talking before letting her do the work. Then Stone asked the question that changed everything. Before you came through the gate, did you do something on the way in? She didn't answer immediately. Her jaw tightened, almost imperceptible. The PKM on Ridge East, Stone pressed. The Soviet-era heavy machine gun that's been shredding our perimeter for 3 days. It went silent 40 minutes ago. No malfunction. The crew just scattered. I noticed that too, Reeves said carefully. In the mortar pit, the one that had been walking rounds toward our medical tent, it went dark at the same time. Everyone looked at Sarah. She didn't confirm, didn't deny. She just opened the rifle case and pulled out a weatherproof notebook, worn, dog-eared, filled with handwriting so precise it looked mechanical. She laid it on the nearest table and began pointing. Your enemy command structure. Senior Commander Farid Rahman, 64 years old, former Mujahideen. He runs communications from the Western Ridge using a 7-antenna array. Modified Soviet doctrine. Decentralized command nodes with centralized communication. I identified him by radio pattern analysis over the last 12 hours. Stone felt the blood drain from his face, not because of the information, because of how she had it. Mortar Coordinator Hassan Noor, Eastern Slope, 3rd firing position from the north. He adjusts fire every 23 minutes in grid sweeps. Predictable. She flipped a page. Colonel Webb fought alongside Rahman during the Soviet occupation in the 80s. He briefed me on exactly how the old man thinks. The room was absolutely still. Field Commander Ahmad Suleiman, Central Observation Post. He coordinates assault waves using runner systems because he doesn't trust radios. He's adapting. If I don't take him within the next 6 hours, he'll reorganize and your QRF window closes. Stone looked at the notebook, looked at the tactical display. The red markers matched her intelligence perfectly. Every position, every commander, every pattern. "How long have you been out there?" he asked quietly. 12 hours. "You've been watching for 12 hours before you came inside." I needed to confirm the command structure before I presented a solution. Colonel Webb doesn't approve of unverified intelligence. Cross whispered it, barely audible. But Stone heard it. Everyone heard it. The Phantom of Kandahar. Sarah's eyes flickered, just once, a micro-reaction that a less experienced commander would have missed entirely, but Stone caught it, and he understood. The Phantom of Kandahar, the name soldiers whispered during night watches. A ghost story. An urban legend. An impossible sniper who appeared in combat zones, took impossible shots, and vanished before anyone could identify them. Some said it was a man. Some said it was a team. Some said it was propaganda. Nobody said it was a woman in hiking boots, standing in a forward operating base, asking for 4 bullets. Stone pulled Sarah into a private room. Just the two of them. He shut the door and looked at her the way you look at a loaded weapon. With respect, with caution, with the awareness that what you're holding can save you or destroy you, depending on how you handle it. "I need to know why," he said. "Colonel Webb is dying. He could have called this in through channels. JSOC, CIA, anyone. Why send one person through the most dangerous approach in this theater?" "Because channels are what got you trapped here, sir. Request for air support denied. Request for QRF denied until weather clears. Request for reinforcement delayed by bureaucracy. How many of your soldiers are going to die while someone at Bagram fills out authorization forms?" She wasn't wrong. Stone hated that she wasn't wrong. "And why you specifically?" The question hung in the air. Sarah's jaw worked. She looked past him, through him, at something only she could see. "Because Colonel Webb is my grandfather," she said quietly. "My mother died when I was 8, lung cancer. He raised me, taught me to shoot when I was 7 years old. Aim small, miss small." That was the first lesson. Stone felt something shift in his chest. Not pity, recognition. The particular understanding that comes from meeting someone forged in the same fire that forged you. He's watching this right now, isn't he? UAV feed on his laptop, hospital room. He can see everything except what happens inside buildings. Stone pulled out his satellite phone, found the number Webb had given him 30 years ago. Never thought he'd use it again. The phone rang 4 times, 5, 6. Then a voice, weak, labored, thin as paper, but absolutely clear. "Jacob, Colonel Marcus Webb, dying 12,000 miles away, but present, here, now. Sir, she's alive. She's here. I can see her on the feed, son. Tell me the situation." Stone gave him the tactical summary. 94 soldiers, 280 hostiles, 6 hours until QRF, ammunition critical, water critical, medical critical. Webb was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of 40 years teaching men to kill and 30 years wishing he'd taught them something else. "Sarah can save every life under your command, Jacob, but you need to trust what she is, not what she looks like. Sir, no disrespect, but she's one woman against..." "She's not one woman. She's every lesson I ever learned, distilled into 128 pounds of discipline and patience, and something I didn't teach her. Something she was born with." "What's that, sir?" "The ability to disappear." Stone looked at Sarah. She met his eyes without blinking. "Get her 4 rounds of 50 caliber BMG from the specialty safe," Webb said. "Authorization code Webb-7. She'll tell you which ones she needs." "Sir, that's an order, Jacob. The last one I'll ever give you. Get my granddaughter her ammunition." The line stayed open. Webb's breathing, labored, wet. The sound of a man whose body was failing, but whose mind refused to surrender. Stone called Cross into the room. "Sergeant, get 4 rounds of 50 cal BMG from the specialty safe. Authorization, Web 7. Cross blinked. "Sir, those are custom loads, hand-measured powder charges, match-grade projectiles. Each one costs more than—" "I know what they cost. Get them." Cross looked at Sarah, looked at Stone. Then he nodded once and moved. Sarah refused radio contact. "They monitor every frequency. The moment I key a mic, they triangulate my position and drop mortar rounds on my head. You'll know I'm working when their command structure starts failing." She picked up the rifle case, checked the notebook, moved toward the door. Stone stopped her. "One more thing. Webb sent you and not a scout sniper team. Why? Don't give me the bureaucracy speech again. I want the real reason." Sarah paused. Her hand rested on the doorframe. For the first time, Stone saw something human beneath the ice. A flicker of something fragile. Something protected by layers of discipline and distance and silence. "Because the colonel is dying," she said, "and the last thing he wants to see before he goes is proof that what he taught matters. That the person he trained can still save lives instead of just taking them." She pushed through the door and walked into the pre-dawn darkness. No goodbye, no dramatic exit, just a woman with a rifle and a promise she intended to keep. Stone watched her go. The darkness swallowed her in 3 steps, like she was made of shadow and silence, and the kind of purpose that doesn't announce itself. Cross appeared at his elbow. The sergeant's face was tight, worried, the kind of worry that comes from 30 years of combat experience telling you something extraordinary is happening, and you're not sure if extraordinary means miraculous or catastrophic. "Sir, we're really trusting our defense to one woman with a rifle." Stone didn't look away from the darkness where Sarah had disappeared. "No, Marcus, we're trusting Colonel Webb's judgment. He trained me. He trained her. If he says she can do this, then she can. And if she can't, then we're exactly where we were an hour ago. 94 Americans surrounded by 280 hostiles with 6 hours until the QRF arrives and enough ammunition to hold for maybe 3. Cross was quiet for a long time. "She walked through them, sir, through 280 fighters like morning fog through a valley. Nobody saw her. Nobody heard her. That's not training. That's something else. That's Webb. Everything that woman is, Webb built." Cross shook his head slowly. "God help the cartel. God help all of us, Marcus. Get some rest. Something tells me the morning's going to be loud." Nobody slept. The compound held its breath, waiting for something none of them could name. Soldiers checked ammunition for the 5th time. Medics reorganized supplies that were already organized. The wounded in medical lay still and listened to the silence outside the walls, wondering why the guns had stopped. Private Emma Cole, 22 years old, 10 months at Sentinel, drew perimeter duty on the North Observation Post. She climbed the ladder at 0400, expecting empty sandbags and cold wind. She found Sarah Mitchell, frozen, absolutely motionless, pressed behind a rifle that looked like it had been through a decade of war zones and come out meaner every time. Custom chassis, a scope that caught starlight and held it, an engraving on the receiver that Emma had to squint to read in the darkness. "MW to SM, hold the line." "Ma'am," Emma whispered. Nothing. No response, no movement, not even visible breathing. "Ma'am, I'm Private Cole. I have perimeter watch." "I know who you are." The voice came from Sarah's direction, but barely moved the air. "You're the one who jury-rigged the water purification system last month with truck radiator parts. Colonel Webb's briefing mentioned you. Resourceful." Emma felt the hair rise on her arms. "How does a colonel in a hospital in D.C. know about my water filter?" "Because he's been watching this base for 3 weeks. Because he's dying. And the last thing he's doing with his life is making sure the people here survive." Emma knelt beside her, close enough now to see Sarah's eye pressed to the scope. her finger resting outside the trigger guard with the discipline of a surgeon holding a scalpel. Close enough to see the faint tremor in her jaw. Not fear, control. The kind of control that costs something. "The PKM on Ridge East," Emma said carefully. "That was you? It was zeroed on your medical tent. Next volley would have killed 7 wounded soldiers. You shot someone at 1,200 meters in the dark. 1,243. Precision matters." Emma stared at her. This woman, this ghost in hiking boots, had walked through enemy lines, eliminated 2 threat positions, mapped the entire enemy command structure, and now lay behind a rifle waiting to do something that every rational part of Emma's brain said was impossible. Why? Emma heard herself ask. No rank, no unit patch, no recognition. Why do this? The silence lasted so long Emma thought she wouldn't answer. "My mother died when I was 8, Sarah said. "Cancer. My grandfather raised me. He taught me that every trigger pull is a choice, and you carry every choice forever. The righteous ones and the mistakes. You carry them all, Private. The day you stop carrying them is the day you become dangerous for the wrong reasons." Emma felt something cold settle in her chest. Not fear, understanding. The kind of understanding that ages you. "I need you to get those 4 specialty rounds from Sergeant Cross," Sarah said, "and then I need you to get 200 meters away from this position." "Why 200? "Because when I start firing, every hostile gun in this valley points at this ridge. Anyone near me becomes collateral. And I didn't walk through a kill zone to get more Americans killed." Emma stood. Her legs felt unsteady. "Can I ask one more thing? Make it quick. Are you going to save us?" Sarah's eye never left the scope. Her breathing never changed. But something in her voice shifted. Something that might have been warmth in someone who allowed themselves warmth. "That's the plan, Private. Now go get my ammunition." Emma moved, found Sergeant Cross in the armory at 04:15, already pulling ammunition from a locked safe like he'd been expecting her. His hands were steady, his face was not. "She sent you for the rounds," Cross said. "Not a question." "Yes, Sergeant." He placed 4 cartridges on the table, each one longer than Emma's hand. Heavy brass, polished but not new. Custom loads, hand-measured powder charges, match-grade projectiles, each one worth more than a month of Emma's pay. "You know what these are, Cole?" 50 caliber BMG specialty rounds. These are Colonel Webb's personal loads. He shipped them here 6 days ago through a supply chain I didn't know existed. 6 days before anyone outside this compound even acknowledged we were in trouble. That old man was already planning the rescue. Cross's voice caught. He covered it with a cough. "That woman walked through 280 hostiles like morning fog through a valley. I've been doing this for 30 years. I've never seen anything like it. And I think we're all going to be alive tomorrow because of her." Emma took the rounds. They felt heavier than physics could explain. "Cole, Sergeant, stay away from that ridge when the shooting starts. She's not wrong about what happens next." Emma carried the ammunition through the compound. Soldiers watched her pass. Nobody spoke. Everyone knew something was happening. Nobody knew what. She climbed back to the observation post and found Sarah exactly where she'd left her. Frozen still, eye pressed to scope, breathing so shallow the dust around her didn't move. 4 rounds, Emma said, placing them beside the rifle. Sarah's hand moved. Slow, deliberate. She picked up the first cartridge and loaded it with a precision that made the motion look ceremonial. The bolt closed with a sound like a vault locking. Emma glanced at the thermal imaging unit she'd brought up earlier for perimeter watch. Standard protocol: check for heat signatures, monitor movement patterns. She'd set it up on the sandbag wall, scanning the compound automatically. The screen showed Fort Sentinel in shades of orange and red, heat signatures everywhere, guards at their posts glowing bright, medics in the tent showing warm, even the faint amber glow of cooling vehicle engines. But where Sarah Mitchell lay, Less than 3 feet from the thermal scope, there was nothing, just a void, a human-shaped absence, like looking at a hole cut into reality. Emma's breath stopped. She stared at the screen, looked at Sarah, back at the screen. Her hands trembled as she adjusted the gain, checked the calibration. The unit was working perfectly. When Emma held up her own hand, she saw it clear on thermal, bright orange, unmistakable. But Sarah Mitchell didn't exist. "Ma'am," Emma whispered, her voice cracked. "The thermal scope, it's not. You're not showing up." Sarah didn't turn from her rifle. "I know. How is that possible? Body temperature 94.3 degrees, 4 degrees below normal. Hypothyroidism combined with a metabolic anomaly. My mother had it too." Sarah's voice was flat, clinical. "It killed her, huddling near heaters trying to stay warm. Lung cancer at 36. But it makes me invisible to thermal imaging." Emma looked at the void on the screen, at the impossible absence where a living human being should glow like a beacon. "That's why nobody saw you walk through 280 hostels. That's why. You're a ghost, literally, not metaphorically. You're actually invisible to their thermal scopes." Yes, Emma felt something fundamental shift in her understanding of reality. This wasn't training. This wasn't skill. This was biology turned into tactical advantage. A genetic curse inherited from a dead mother, transformed into the most terrifying capability a sniper could possess. The ability to be unseen, not through stealth, through physics. "Does it hurt?" Emma found herself asking. "Being that cold?" Sarah was quiet for a moment. "Every day, every hour. I'm always cold, Private. Always have been. Always will be. The trade-off for being invisible is feeling like you're dying slowly from the inside. But you use it anyway. Because 94 people need me to. Because my grandfather taught me that gifts aren't given for comfort, they're given for purpose. And if my purpose is to be cold and invisible so others can stay warm and alive, then that's the trade I make." Emma looked at the thermal screen one more time, at the void that was Sarah Mitchell, at proof that some people paid prices others couldn't imagine just to do what needed doing. 200 meters, Private. Now." "Yes, ma'am." Emma turned to leave, stopped. "The engraving on your rifle, MW to SM, that's Webb to you. Move, Cole. He gave you that rifle. He gave me everything. The rifle's just the part you can see. Now move before I give the cartel a second target." Emma moved. She made it 180 meters before her legs gave out and she dropped behind a concrete barrier. Heart hammering, back pressed against the wall, she could still see the observation post, a tiny figure behind sandbags. One woman, one rifle, 4 bullets. One ghost that thermal imaging couldn't find. The whole compound was holding its breath. And in the pre-dawn darkness of West Texas, Sarah Mitchell settled behind her rifle and waited for the sun to rise over a valley full of men who had no idea what was coming. Men with thermal scopes that would search for her and find nothing. Men with infrared targeting that would sweep past her like she didn't exist. Men who thought they were hunting a sniper when they were actually being hunted by something they couldn't see, couldn't track, couldn't predict. A ghost with a rifle and 4 bullets and the coldest blood in Texas, she whispered into the silence. Not a prayer, not a promise, just 4 words that Colonel Marcus Webb had taught her the first day she held a rifle. "Hold the line, Sarah." And she held it. At 04:37, the world cracked open. The sound was unlike anything Emma had heard. Not the sharp bark of an M4 or the heavy thud of a 50 cal mounted gun. This was a rolling crack that split the pre-dawn air like God snapping a bone. It echoed off every ridge. It bounced between mountains. It filled the valley with the sound of something ancient and terrible and precise. Cartel radio traffic exploded. Even without monitoring equipment, Emma could hear the chaos. distant shouting, frantic movement, the unmistakable panic of men who just lost their command structure and couldn't understand how. Stone's voice came through every radio in the compound. "Northridge, report! What just happened?" Cross answered from the operations center. He'd been watching through binoculars. "Western Ridge, sir. Cartel communications officer is down. Confirmed hit. Range?" Cross paused, recalculated, paused again. "Sir, range is approximately 2,270 meters. Dead silence on the radio. 2,270 meters, over a mile and a third. A shot that most military snipers would call theoretical. A shot that belonged in textbooks, in bar stories, in the kind of lies old soldiers tell when they've had too much whiskey. Sarah Mitchell made it look routine. 4 minutes later, at 0441, the second crack rolled across the valley. Same sound, same terrible precision. The mortar coordinator on the eastern slope dropped mid-sentence on cartel radio. 1,870 meters. The mortar tubes that had been walking death toward the medical tent went permanently silent. 2 shots, 2 commanders dead, 2 pillars of the siege knocked out in 4 minutes. Inside the operations center, Stone gripped the edge of the tactical display and watched red markers begin to scatter. Without their communications officer, the cartel couldn't coordinate. Without their mortar coordinator, they couldn't suppress. The 280 fighter force that had been choking Fort Sentinel for 3 days was fracturing in real time. "She's doing it," Reeves whispered. "She's actually doing it." 2 down, Stone said. 2 to go. But the third shot didn't come. Minutes passed. 5, 10, 15. The compound tensed. Soldiers who'd been counting shots waited for the third crack that would tell them the nightmare was almost over. It didn't come. "Why isn't she firing?" Reeves asked. Stone raised his binoculars and focused on the North Ridge. Sarah Mitchell hadn't moved. Still behind the rifle. Still frozen in that impossible stillness that made her look more like a statue than a living person. Cross pulled up the thermal feed on the operations center monitor. The same feed Emma had been watching. The same impossible absence where a human being should glow bright. "Sir," Cross said quietly, "we need to understand what we're seeing here, or rather, what we're not seeing." Stone looked at the screen, at the void, at the human-shaped nothing. "She's not showing up on thermal," Cross continued. "Body temperature too low. She's invisible to every piece of detection equipment the cartel has. They can't find her with thermal, can't track her with infrared, can't predict her because she doesn't leave the heat signature that normal humans leave." Stone felt ice flood his veins, not from fear, from understanding. "She's been lying on that ridge for 5 hours, in the open, and they can't see her." "No, sir, they can't. She's a ghost. Not metaphorically, physically. She doesn't exist on their sensors." Reeves stared at the screen, at the evidence of something that rewrote everything he thought he knew about human capability. "That's not possible." "It's happening," Stone said. "Right now, in front of us. She's out there, invisible, hunting men who can't hunt her back because they can't see her." Cross looked at Stone. "Sir, if this gets out, if anyone learns what she can do, what she is, it won't, because we're going to keep our mouths shut, because Sarah Mitchell asked for anonymity, and we're going to give it to her, because the world doesn't need to know that ghosts are real." On the North Ridge, Sarah Mitchell waited, patient, invisible, cold as winter, watching through her scope as the third target moved through his patterns, calculating, measuring, counting heartbeats in wind shifts and the particular mathematics of death at distance. She was hunting, and the men she hunted had no idea they were prey, because thermal imaging said she wasn't there, because the laws of human biology said nobody could function at 94 degrees core temperature, because ghosts weren't supposed to be real. But Sarah Mitchell was real, and she was cold, and she was patient. And when the moment came, when Ahmad Suleiman made the mistake of being predictable for just 4 seconds, she would fire the third shot, and the siege would break, and 94 Americans would live. Because one woman inherited her mother's curse and turned it into everyone else's salvation. That was the gift. That was the price. That was Sarah Mitchell, the phantom of Kandahar, the ghost with the coldest blood in Texas, the woman who couldn't be found. The third shot came at 1815 hours, 12 hours after Sarah Mitchell had fired her second round. 12 hours of absolute stillness on that north ridge, while the temperature dropped from 98 degrees to 30 below zero, and the wind picked up to 50 miles per hour and turned the observation post into a freezer with a view. Cross had tried to relieve her at 0600, brought blankets, water, protein bars, found her in exactly the same position, eye pressed to scope, finger outside the trigger guard, breathing so shallow he had to watch for 30 seconds to confirm she was alive. "Ma'am, you need to rotate off. Hypothermia protocol says..." "Movement creates heat signature. I stay still. You've been out here 12 hours without food or water." "I'm aware, Sergeant." "Ma'am, with respect, you're going to die out here." Sarah finally moved, just her eyes, shifting from the scope to Cross. Gray eyes that looked like winter itself. "Sergeant, I spent 72 hours in a snow cave in the Rockies when I was 19. Negative 40 degrees, no fire, no shelter beyond what I could dig. My grandfather's final test. This?" She looked back through the scope. "This is comfortable." Cross stared at her, at the thin frame that should have been shaking with hypothermia by now, at the hands that should have been too numb to hold a rifle, at the woman who was somehow functioning in conditions that would have put any other soldier in medical within 6 hours. "You're not normal," he said, not an accusation, an observation. "No, Sergeant, I'm not." He left the blankets anyway. She didn't touch them. At 1400 hours, Stone himself climbed to the observation post, found Sarah in the same position, unmoving, a light dusting of frost on her shoulders where condensation had frozen. She looked like a statue, like something carved from ice and patience, and the particular kind of discipline that most people confuse with inhumanity. "Mitchell." "Sir." "How much longer?" "Target 3 is moving on a pattern, 23-minute cycle, but he's smart, varies his timing by 3 to 7 minutes each rotation. I'm waiting for the statistical convergence." In English? "I'm waiting for him to make the mistake of being predictable, sir." Stone looked through his binoculars at the central observation post, saw nothing, no movement, no heat signature, no indication that Ahmad Suleiman was even there. "How do you know he's there if you can't see him?" "I can hear him." "Hear him? He's over a mile away." Sarah didn't answer. She closed her eyes, tilted her head slightly to the left, and Stone realized with a creeping sense of unease that she was listening to something he couldn't hear, something beyond the range of normal human perception. "There," she said softly, "Jeep engine, 800 meters behind his position. Creates a wind pocket, changes the air density. That's the variable I was waiting for." She opened her eyes, settled behind the scope, and Stone saw her lips move, counting, calculating, processing variables that would take a ballistics computer 30 seconds to analyze. She did it in 4. The rifle spoke. 3,218 meters, the longest confirmed kill shot in United States military history. And Stone watched it happen through binoculars. Watched Ahmad Suleiman, who'd been standing at the edge of his observation post, drop like someone had cut his strings. The cartel radio net dissolved into screaming chaos. Cross, who'd been monitoring from the operations center, came through on Stone's radio. His voice shook. "Sir, that was over 2 miles. That's not possible." Stone lowered his binoculars. His hands were trembling, not from cold, from witnessing something that rewrote what he thought he knew about human capability. Get every soldier off the north perimeter, 200-meter clear zone around Mitchell's position. Right now. Sir? That's an order, Sergeant. If she's drawn this much attention, the counterfire is going to be biblical. He climbed down from the observation post. Looked back once. Sarah Mitchell hadn't moved, was already scanning for the fourth target. The one Colonel Webb hadn't told them about. The one that Stone was starting to suspect was far worse than 3 cartel commanders. At the bottom of the ladder, Lieutenant Reeves was waiting. The West Point graduate who'd called Sarah a girl with a backpack 18 hours ago. His face was gray. His hands shook as he held out a notebook. Sir, I need to tell her something. Tell her after this is over. Sir, I don't know if there's going to be an after. If we, Reeves stopped, started again. My wife is pregnant, 7 months. We're having a girl. I want to name her Sarah. If Miss Mitchell would, I just need her to know that I was wrong. About everything. Stone took the notebook, opened it, saw the same line written over and over in Reeves's careful handwriting, filling page after page. Check your assumptions. Check your assumptions. Check your assumptions. When did you start writing this? 6 hours ago, after the second shot. I'm going to write it every morning for the rest of my life. Reeves looked up, tears on his face, not from cold, from the particular shame that comes when you realize you've been fundamentally wrong about something important. How do I live with being this wrong about a person? You become better. That's all any of us can do. The satellite phone in Stone's pocket buzzed. Webb, the dying colonel who was watching his granddaughter perform miracles through a laptop screen 12,000 miles away. Stone answered, Sir, she's... The third shot was, I saw it, Jacob, 3,218 meters. New record. She'll hate that when she finds out. She doesn't like the attention. Webb's voice was worse, weaker, the cancer eating him from the inside. How is she, physically? She's been in position 12 hours. No food, no water, temperature -30. She should be dead. But she's not. No, sir, she's not even cold. How is that possible? Webb was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that went beyond the tactical situation, beyond the siege, into something older and more fundamental. Sarah's mother, my daughter Emily, she had the same condition. Hypothyroidism combined with a metabolic anomaly the doctors never fully understood. Her body temperature ran 94.3 degrees her entire life. She was always cold, always wearing sweaters in summer. Died when Sarah was 8. Lung cancer, probably from huddling near heaters trying to stay warm. Stone felt something shift in his understanding, and Sarah inherited it. Sarah inherited it. But where Emily struggled with the cold, Sarah learned to use it. Thermal invisibility, no heat signature. She can stay in position in conditions that would kill anyone else. It's a gift and a curse, Jacob. A gift because it makes her the most effective sniper I've ever trained. A curse because, Webb's breath caught, because it cost her her mother. And because it means she'll always be alone in ways other people can't understand. Sir, there's something else. She said she's listening for Target 4, but she won't tell us who it is. The silence on the line lasted so long, Stone thought the connection had dropped. Sir? His name is Rashid Azari, Webb said finally. 44 years old, former student of mine. I trained him in 1995 when I was stationed in Afghanistan. CIA advisory mission, Mujahideen resistance. He was 20 years old, brilliant, dedicated, the best natural talent I'd ever seen. Stone felt ice flood his veins. You trained the counter-sniper. I trained him everything I later taught Sarah. Same doctrine, same discipline, same patience. 25 years ago, I taught a young man how to protect his people, and he did. 34 confirmed kills against Taliban forces. Then we pulled out, left him. He felt betrayed, went underground, resurfaced working for whoever would pay him. Webb's voice broke. And now my first student and my last student are hunting each other. And God forgive me, Jacob, I have to choose between them. Stone closed his eyes, felt the weight of what Webb was saying. The impossible moral calculus of a teacher who'd built two weapons and now watched them pointed at each other. Who do you choose, sir? I choose the one who saves lives over the one who takes them. I choose Sarah, but that doesn't make it hurt less. Stone looked toward the north ridge where Sarah Mitchell lay behind her rifle, hunting a man who'd been trained by the same grandfather who raised her, a man who knew every trick she knew, every tactic, every pattern, because they'd learned from the same teacher. She knows, doesn't she? That's why she's been still for 12 hours. She's not waiting for a target, she's waiting for him to reveal himself. Sarah's not just patient, Jacob. She's strategic. She knows Rashid won't be able to resist the challenge. A shot at 3,000 meters? That's a declaration. A challenge to anyone watching who understands what it means. Rashid will answer. And when he does, Sarah will be ready. But Sarah wasn't ready for what came next. At 1900 hours, as the sun dropped behind the western ridge and the temperature plummeted another 10 degrees, Emma Cole climbed back to the observation post. Stone had ordered her to bring Sarah thermal imaging data, heat signatures from the eastern ridge where they suspected Rashid was hiding. She found Sarah in the same position, but something was different. The absolute stillness had fractured. Sarah's left hand trembled, just slightly, a micro tremor that Emma almost missed. "Ma'am, Commander Stone sent thermal data. Put it down and leave, Private." The voice was different, strained, the first crack in the ice. Emma set down the tablet, started to turn. Then she saw the snow around Sarah's position. Pink, not white, pink with diluted blood. "Ma'am, you're bleeding." "I'm aware." "Ma'am, I need to call medical." "You need to leave, now." Sarah's voice carried an edge Emma hadn't heard before. Not anger, desperation. The sound of someone holding on by fingernails and knowing the grip is failing. "Private, when Rashid fires at me, and he will, anyone within 200 meters becomes collateral. I told you once. I won't tell you again." Emma looked at the blood, looked at Sarah's trembling hand, looked at the woman who'd been holding this position for 14 hours in conditions that should have killed her. "How long can you hold out?" "Long enough." That's not an answer. Sarah finally looked at her, gray eyes that had gone from cold to hollow. The look of someone running on empty and knowing it. "I can hold until he shows himself, or until my body shuts down, whichever comes first." "And if your body shuts down first?" "Then 94, I won't let that be his last memory. I won't." Emma left, ran, found Stone and Cross in the operations center. "Sir, she's hypothermic, stage 2, maybe stage 3. She's bleeding from somewhere I couldn't see. She won't come off that ridge." Stone grabbed the satellite phone. "Colonel, she's shutting down." Webb's breathing rasped through the speaker. "I know. I'm watching her vitals through the thermal feed. Core temperature 91 degrees. Heart rate 40 beats per minute. She's in the danger zone. Then pull her off." "I can't." "Sir, with respect, you don't understand, Jacob. If I order her off that ridge, she'll disobey me for the first time in her life. Because she knows what I know. Rashid is there, waiting. If she leaves, he'll wait until the next crisis, the next siege, the next group of soldiers with no way out. And he'll kill them. This is the only chance we have to end this." Webb's voice shook. "I'm asking my granddaughter to die for you. Do you understand that? I'm asking her to die. There has to be another way." "There isn't. This is war, real war. Not the kind with rules and lawyers and proportional response. The kind where the only choice is who lives and who doesn't. Sarah chose. She chose you. All 94 of you." Stone looked at the tactical display. at the red markers that had been scattered by Sarah's 3 shots, at the one remaining marker on the eastern ridge, Rashid Azari, the ghost, the mirror, the first student facing the last student in a duel that only one of them would survive. What do? We give her what she needs to finish this. Webb coughed, a wet, terrible sound. And we pray that when it's over, there's enough of her left to save. At 1930 hours, Cross brought Sarah something she hadn't asked for. A field trauma kit, morphine, stimulants, heat packs, everything a medic would bring to someone bleeding out in the cold. He set it beside her without a word, started to leave. Sergeant, Cross stopped. When this is over, if I don't, Sarah's voice caught. The first time Cross had heard genuine emotion from her. Tell my grandfather I held the line. That's all. Just tell him I held the line. Cross knelt beside her. This close he could see the blood soaking through her tactical vest, could see the blue tinge to her lips, could see the woman behind the weapon, and she was young and scared and dying by inches. You're coming off this ridge alive, Mitchell. That's an order. I don't take orders from you, Sergeant. Then take one from a man who's been doing this for 30 years and has seen exactly 2 people in his entire career who were worth a damn. You're one of them. The colonel is the other, and I'm not watching him lose you. Cross pulled out the morphine. This is for after, not before. Before means you lose fine motor control. After means you survive the pain. Understood? Sarah looked at him. Something shifted in those gray eyes. Not warmth, recognition. The acknowledgement that she wasn't as alone as she'd thought. Understood, Sergeant. Cross left, climbed down the ladder, found Stone waiting at the bottom. She's not going to make it, sir. Medical says another 3 hours maximum before organ failure. Then we better hope Rashid shows himself in the next 2. But Rashid Azari hadn't survived 25 years as a contract killer by being predictable. He'd watched Sarah's 3 shots, understood what they meant, understood that the woman on the North Ridge was no ordinary sniper, was perhaps the only person in the world who could threaten him. So he waited, patient, invisible, doing exactly what Webb had taught him a quarter-century ago. Outlast your opponent. Let time and cold and exhaustion do the work. Then, when they're weak, take the shot. Sarah knew this. Webb had taught her the same doctrine, taught her that patience was a weapon, that time could kill as effectively as a bullet. The question was whether she had more time than Rashid had patience. At 2000 hours, Stone made a decision he would remember for the rest of his life. He called the satellite phone. Webb answered on the first ring. Sir, we need to draw him out. Give Sarah a target she can work with. But that means someone has to be bait. Who do you have in mind? Stone looked across the operations center at Lieutenant Marcus Reeves, the West Point graduate who'd called Sarah a girl, who'd spent 6 hours writing "Check Your Assumptions" in a notebook, who'd asked to name his unborn daughter after the woman he'd dismissed. Reeves, Stone said. It has to be Reeves. Webb was quiet. Why him? Because Rashid monitors communications. He knows Reeves doubted Sarah, knows there's conflict in the command structure. He'll see Reeves as deserving. Deserving of punishment? Yes, sir. Then ask him, don't order him. If he's going to walk through a kill zone, it has to be his choice. Stone crossed to Reeves. The young lieutenant looked up, saw something in Stone's face that made him stand. Sir? I need you to walk 60 meters of open ground, from here to the medical tent. Slow, natural pace, like you're inspecting the perimeter. Reeves went pale. You're using me as bait. I'm asking you to trust that Sarah Mitchell can do something impossible. Again, but I won't order you. This has to be voluntary. Reeves looked at the notebook in his hand, at the pages filled with his own handwriting. Check your assumptions. Over and over, a mantra, a prayer, a promise to be better than he'd been. If I do this and she saves me, I want 5 minutes with her to apologize, properly. If you do this and she saves you, Lieutenant, you can have all the time you need. Reeves nodded once, set down the notebook, checked his body armor, tightened the straps, took a breath that tasted like dust and fear, and the particular flavor of terror that comes from choosing to do the thing that terrifies you. Tell her I'm sorry before I walk. Tell her that. Stone keyed the radio. Sarah's voice came through, weak now, the first time she'd sounded human. Go ahead, sir. Mitchell, Lieutenant Reeves is going to walk the medical corridor. He wants you to know he's sorry for everything. Silence. Then, tell him his daughter will be proud of him. Tell him I'll make sure of it. Reeves walked. Stone watched through binoculars. Watched the young officer step into the open. 10 meters, 20, 30, moving with the careful precision of a man who knows death is watching and trying very hard not to think about it. Sarah's voice came through the radio. Calm now, the ice returning. The emotion locked away behind discipline and training and 47 years of lessons from a grandfather who taught her that feelings were fine, but they couldn't interfere with the work. Contact, Eastern Ridge. I have him. Stone's heart hammered. Range? 1,130 meters. He's tracking Reeves. Calculating wind. Adjusting for. Wait. Wait for what? He's good. He knows the wind pocket. He's compensating. But he's overcompensating. Pride. Webb always said Rashid had too much pride. He wants the perfect shot. Not just a kill. A perfect kill. 40 meters. 50. Reeves was halfway across the corridor. Stone could see sweat on the lieutenant's face despite the cold. Could see the micro tremors in his hands. Sarah, if you're going to take the shot, not yet. I'm not shooting where he is. I'm shooting where he'll be. Webb taught him the 7-second rule. Fire and relocate. Always to the right. Dominant hand side. It's instinct. Rashid will fire, then move right. That's my window. And if you're wrong, then Reeves dies, and I spend the rest of my life knowing I failed. Her voice went quiet. But I'm not wrong. I can't be wrong. 94 people are counting on me to not be wrong. 55 meters. Reeves was almost to the medical tent, almost safe, almost. The cracks split the air, not from the North Ridge, from the east. Rashid's shot. Stone watched through binoculars as the round passed 3 feet from Reeves's head. Saw the lieutenant drop. Training taking over. Get small. Get down. Survive. Sarah fired. Not at the muzzle flash. At a point 4 meters to the right of it. At a space in the air where Rashid Azari would be in 4 seconds if he followed the doctrine that Colonel Marcus Webb had drilled into him 25 years ago in the mountains of Afghanistan. Time slowed. Stone watched the round travel, watched it cross 1,130 meters of cold Texas air, watched it arrive at the eastern ridge exactly where Sarah had calculated, exactly when Rashid would be transitioning from his firing position to cover. The moment of maximum vulnerability. The half-second when even the most disciplined sniper is between positions and exposed. The sound came back across the valley, a distant, flat report that echoed off the ridges and faded into nothing. Sarah's voice on the radio, barely a whisper now. Target down, confirmed. Stone lowered the binoculars. His hands shook so badly he almost dropped them. Say again? 4th target eliminated, mission complete. The operations center erupted. Soldiers cheering, Cross slapping Stone on the back, Reeves climbing to his feet, checking himself for wounds, finding none, collapsing against the medical tent wall and sobbing with relief. But Stone didn't celebrate. He grabbed a medical kit and ran, because Sarah's voice on that last transmission had been wrong. Not relieved, not triumphant, empty. The voice of someone who'd given everything and had nothing left. He reached the North Ridge in 43 seconds, climbed the ladder, found Cross already there, having moved before Stone had even given the order. Found Sarah slumped against the sandbag wall, Left hand clamped over her right shoulder. Blood. Dark. Steady. Too much. Through and through, she said before he could ask. Her voice was clinical, detached. The voice of someone reporting damage to equipment rather than her own body. Rashid's final shot, he missed Reeves. Hit me. Poetic, I suppose. Cross was already working. 30 years of combat medicine compressed into muscle memory. Cut the sleeve, pack the wound, apply pressure. Sarah didn't flinch, didn't gasp, didn't make a sound. Stone pulled out the satellite phone. "Sir, it's done. All 4 targets down." But Sarah's hit. Shoulder wound. She needs medical. Webb's voice came through so weak, Stone had to press the phone to his ear. "Let me talk to her." Stone held the phone to Sarah's ear. She closed her eyes. "Grandfather, you did it, child. All 4. I watched every shot. I'm sorry. I should have been faster. Rashid got one off before." "Stop. You have nothing to apologize for. You saved 94 lives. You ended a threat that's been haunting this region for 5 years. You did everything I ever taught you and more. I am so proud of you, Sarah." Sarah's eyes filled. The first tears Stone had seen. "I killed him. Your first student. I killed Rashid. You protected the living. That's what I taught you. Not to kill, to protect. There's a difference. Rashid forgot that difference. You never did. That's why you'll always be the better student." "I don't feel better. I feel like I just killed my brother." "I know, child. I know. And that pain means you're still human. Still capable of feeling the weight of your choices. Don't ever lose that. The day you stop feeling it is the day you become what Rashid became. A weapon. Just a weapon." Sarah pressed her hand harder against the wound. Her face was gray, lips blue, shaking now, the adrenaline crash hitting. "Grandfather, I'm very cold." "I know. Medical is coming. Cross will keep you alive until they get there. You just need to hold on a little longer." "I'm tired of holding on." "I know, but you're going to do it anyway, because that's who you are. That's who I raised you to be, someone who holds the line. Always." "I held it." "You did. You held it better than anyone I ever trained. Better than me. You became everything I hoped and nothing I feared. And that's all a teacher can ask." Sarah's eyes closed. "Don't die, grandfather. Please don't die yet." Webb's voice broke for the first time. "I'll try, child. I'll try to hold on long enough to see you home. But if I can't, you need to know. You need to know that the last thing I thought about, the last thing that mattered, was you. Was knowing that what I taught, it wasn't just death, it was protection. You proved that. You proved that everything I did, everything I taught, it could be used to save instead of just destroy. I love you. I love you too, Sarah, so much. Now let the medic work. Let them save you. You've saved everyone else. Let someone save you." The phone went silent. Not disconnected. Webb was still there. Still listening. Still watching through the UAV feed. Still counting his granddaughter's heartbeats and praying each one wasn't the last. Doc Preston arrived with a full trauma team. Saw the wound. Saw the blood loss. Saw a woman who should have been unconscious but was somehow still aware. Still present. "Get her to medical now. We're losing her." They lifted Sarah onto a stretcher. She didn't fight, didn't protest. Just lay there with her eyes half open, looking at the sky. The Texas sky that had gone from black to gray as dawn approached. The sky she'd been staring at for 16 hours. The sky that had witnessed something that would be talked about in military academies for generations. As they carried her down, Sarah's hand reached out, grabbed Stone's sleeve, pulled him close, whispered something that only he could hear. Tell them it wasn't worth it. Tell them the cost. Tell them that 4 kills bought 94 lives, but it cost. It cost everything. Then she was gone, unconscious, her hand falling away, her body going limp as the medics rushed her to the tent and the machines, in the desperate attempt to save a woman who'd spent 16 hours saving everyone else. Stone stood on the ridge as the sun rose, looked at the blood in the snow, looked at the rifle still lying behind the sandbags. The rifle with the engraving, MW to SM, hold the line. She'd held it, and it had nearly killed her. Cross climbed up beside him. Neither man spoke. They just stood there as the sun broke over the eastern ridge, over the place where Rashid Azari had died, over a battlefield that had been transformed by one woman and 4 bullets and 16 hours of impossible precision. Finally, Cross spoke. "Sir, what she whispered to you, what did she say?" Stone looked at him, at the old sergeant who'd called Sarah a girl with a backpack, who'd learned the same lesson Reeves had learned, that assumptions kill, that wisdom comes from being wrong and choosing to be better. She said it wasn't worth it, the cost. She said we need to tell them about the cost. Tell who? Everyone. Everyone who hears this story. Everyone who thinks it was clean, easy, 4 shots and done. She wants them to know what 4 shots actually cost. Cross looked at the blood, at the evidence of what precision actually requires. What did it cost? Everything, Marcus. It cost everything. They climbed down. The compound was alive with celebration. The siege was over. The QRF was arriving. 94 soldiers who'd been counting hours until death were suddenly counting hours until they could call home, tell their families they'd survived, that someone had saved them. But in the medical tent, surrounded by machines and monitors, and the desperate work of people trying to reverse 16 hours of hypothermia and blood loss and tissue damage, Sarah Mitchell lay unconscious. And on a laptop screen 12,000 miles away, Colonel Marcus Webb watched his granddaughter's vitals and prayed. Prayed that she'd survive. Prayed that the cost wouldn't be permanent. Prayed that somehow, despite everything, there'd be enough left of the woman to build a life beyond the rifle. The monitor showed her core temperature slowly rising. 91 degrees, 92, 93. Her heart rate climbing from the dangerous 40s to the merely concerning 60s. She was coming back. 1 degree at a time, 1 heartbeat at a time. But the question that would haunt everyone who witnessed those 16 hours was simple and terrible. What had come back? Was it Sarah Mitchell, the woman? Or was it the phantom of Kandahar, the weapon? And in the end, which one had Colonel Marcus Webb actually created? Sarah Mitchell woke 3 days later in a hospital room at Landstuhl Regional Medical Center, Germany. The machines told her she was alive before her brain did. Heart monitor beeping steady at 62. IV drip-feeding fluids and antibiotics into veins that had been on the edge of collapse. Oxygen cannula in her nose because her lungs had forgotten how to work efficiently after 16 hours of shallow breathing in sub-zero temperatures. Doc Preston was sitting in a chair by the window. He'd flown with her on the medevac, stayed through the surgeries. The 55-year-old field medic who'd seen everything combat could do to a human body looked at Sarah Mitchell like she was something he'd never seen before, something that scared him and awed him in equal measure. "Welcome back," he said quietly. "You've been out 72 hours. Sarah tried to speak. Her throat was raw. Preston held up water. She drank. Small sips, each one feeling like broken glass going down. "Fort Sentinel? Everyone's alive. QRF arrived 4 hours after you took the 4th shot. Full evacuation complete. 94 souls, every single one breathing because of you." Sarah closed her eyes. 94. The number she'd been carrying for 3 days. The weight that had kept her behind that scope when her body screamed to stop. "Good." Preston leaned forward. His face was serious, the look of a doctor about to deliver news that changes lives. "Sarah, I need you to understand what you did to yourself, the price you paid. Can you hear me?" She nodded. Core temperature got down to 89.7 degrees. Another hour you'd have gone into cardiac arrest. Rhabdomyolysis. Your muscle tissue was breaking down, flooding your kidneys with myoglobin. We had you on dialysis for 36 hours. Severe dehydration. You lost 11 pounds in 16 hours. 128 to 117. He pulled up a tablet, showed her thermal images of her feet. Frostbite, stage 2, 7 toes, 3 fingers on your left hand. You'll keep everything, but the nerve damage is permanent. You're going to have numbness, probably chronic pain in cold weather, for the rest of your life. Sarah looked at her hands. They were wrapped in bandages. She tried to move her fingers. The right hand responded. The left hand, 3 fingers didn't. Index, middle, ring, just hung there, dead weight. Can I still shoot? Preston stared at her. Sarah, did you hear anything I just said? You nearly died. Your body will never fully recover. And you're asking if you can still shoot? Can I? He exhaled slowly. The shoulder wound will heal, through and through, clean. 6 weeks rehab, you'll have full range of motion. The frostbite in your trigger hand. Yes, you can still shoot. But Sarah, the question isn't whether you can, it's whether you should. What does that mean? It means every doctor who examined you agrees. You're showing signs of severe post-traumatic stress, acute sleep disorder, hypervigilance, classic combat PTSD, and you haven't even started processing what you did yet. 4 kills, 16 hours in position. One of those kills was a man trained by your own grandfather. A man who was, by all accounts, like a brother to you in training. Sarah turned her head away, looked at the window. Gray German sky, rain falling. Everything soft and muted and safe. Nothing like the sharp, cold clarity of that Texas ridge. Nothing like the moment when she'd put her crosshairs on Rashida Zari and pulled the trigger and ended a life that had been shaped by the same hands that shaped hers. Where's my grandfather? Preston's face changed. Something shifted, something sad. Sarah, Colonel Webb, he's still at Walter Reed, but he's declining rapidly. The doctors say days, maybe a week. He's been asking for you. Every time he's conscious, first thing he says, "Is Sarah alive? Is she home yet?" I need to see him. You're not cleared for travel, not for another week minimum. I need to see him now. Preston stood, walked to the door, stopped. Sarah, there's something else. Washington wants to give you the Medal of Honor. Longest confirmed kill in military history. 3,218 meters. 4 for 4 target elimination. Single operator. 16 hours in hostile conditions. They want to make you famous. Hold a ceremony. Tell the world what you did. Sarah's voice went flat. Dead. The ice returning. No. No? No medal, no ceremony, no publicity, no records. I want my name kept out of every report, every file, every database. I want to disappear. Sarah, you can't just disappear. What you did, it's historic. It matters. What matters is that 94 people are alive. The how doesn't matter. The who doesn't matter. Just the result. That's all that should ever matter. Preston looked at her for a long moment, saw something in those gray eyes that made him understand. This wasn't modesty. This wasn't humility. This was survival. Tara Mitchell knew that fame would destroy whatever was left of the person inside the weapon, would turn her into a symbol instead of a human being, would make it impossible to ever be anything except the phantom of Kandahar. I'll tell them, he said, but I can't guarantee they'll listen. Make them listen. Tell them if they put my name in any official report, I'll disappear for real, and they'll never find me. He left. Sarah lay in the hospital bed and stared at the ceiling and felt the weight of 3 days settle over her like a blanket. 3 days unconscious. 3 days where her body had been fighting to survive and her mind had been somewhere else. Somewhere dark. Somewhere that smelled like gunpowder and blood, and the particular scent of death at distance. She dreamed, not nightmares exactly, just faces. 4 faces. Farid Rahman, Hassan Noor, Ahmad Suleiman, Rashid Azari. 4 men she'd never spoken to, never met, never knew beyond the crosshairs of a scope. 4 men who had families, histories, reasons for being where they were. 4 men who died because she was better at mathematics than they were at hiding. The door opened. Commander Jacob Stone walked in. He looked 10 years older than he had 4 days ago. The kind of aging that happens when you watch something that changes your understanding of what humans are capable of. Mitchell. Sir. He pulled up a chair, sat, looked at her the way you look at someone who saved your life, and you don't know how to process that debt. How are you feeling? Like I spent 16 hours dying by degrees. That's accurate. He pulled out a tablet. I brought you something. Thought you might want to see. He turned the screen. Video footage. Shaky phone camera. Soldiers at Fort Sentinel. 94 faces. One by one, they looked at the camera and said the same thing. Thank you, Sarah Mitchell. You saved my life, Sarah Mitchell. My daughter will know your name, Sarah Mitchell. I owe you everything, Sarah Mitchell. Lieutenant Reeves was last. Standing in the same corridor he'd walked through as bait, his face was serious, grateful, changed. Miss Mitchell, I was wrong about you, completely wrong. My wife and I. We're naming our daughter Sarah. If you'll allow it, I want her to grow up knowing that assumptions can kill, and that the most dangerous person in a room is often the quietest. I'll teach her that, every day, because of you. The video ended. Stone set down the tablet. That's 94 people who wanted you to know, who needed you to know. What you did mattered. What you sacrificed mattered. Sarah's eyes were wet. She didn't try to hide it, didn't try to maintain the ice. Sir, I need you to understand something. What I did, it wasn't heroic. It was mathematics. Wind speed, distance, bullet drop, Coriolis effect. I just solved equations, that's all. That's not all. You chose to solve those equations instead of walking away. You chose 94 strangers over your own safety, over your own body. That's not mathematics, Mitchell. That's character. It was my grandfather's choice, not mine. He pointed me at Fort Sentinel and said, go. I went. Stone leaned forward. Sarah, your grandfather gave you training. He gave you skills, but he didn't give you compassion. He didn't give you the ability to care about 94 people you'd never met. That was already in you. He just gave you the tools to act on it. Sarah turned away, looked at the window, at the rain, at the soft, gray world that felt like a different planet from the one she'd been on 4 days ago. I killed 4 people, sir. I ended 4 lives. I don't feel like a hero. I feel like a weapon that got used, and now the weapon is damaged, and I don't know how to be anything else. Then learn. You're 27 years old. You have time to become something beyond what your grandfather trained you to be. Do I? Because every time I close my eyes, I see their faces. Farid, Hassan, Ahmad, Rashid, especially Rashid, because he was like me, trained by Webb, shaped by Webb, and I killed him. I killed my grandfather's first student to save his last students. And that's a debt I don't know how to carry. Stone was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was gentle, the voice of a commander who'd learned to recognize trauma when he saw it. Sarah, you're not carrying that debt alone. Your grandfather is carrying it too, and so am I. And so are 94 soldiers who will spend the rest of their lives knowing they're alive because you made the hardest choice anyone can make. The choice to kill so others can live. That's not a burden you carry solo. That's a burden we all carry together. The satellite phone on Stone's belt buzzed. He answered, listened. His face went pale. Understood. I'll tell her. He looked at Sarah. And she knew before he said it, knew from the way his hands shook, knew from the way his eyes went red. That was Walter Reed, your grandfather. He's asking for you. They've moved him to hospice. Hours, maybe less. They're arranging emergency transport. Military jet. You'll be there in 8 hours if you leave now. Sarah sat up. Pain screamed through her shoulder, through her hands, through every nerve ending that had been pushed past human limits. She ignored it, swung her legs over the edge of the bed. Get me dressed. Get me on that plane. Now. Preston tried to stop her. Medically inadvisable. Still recovering. Risk of complications. She stared at him with eyes that had gone from gray to steel. I held a position for 16 hours in sub-zero temperatures with a bullet in my shoulder. I can sit on a plane for 8 hours. Get me to my grandfather before he dies, thinking I didn't make it. They got her on the plane, military medical transport, nurses, monitors, everything needed to keep her stable for an intercontinental flight. She spent 8 hours staring at the ceiling of the cargo bay and remembering. Remembered being 8 years old, her mother's funeral, standing in the rain, her grandfather's hand on her shoulder. The only solid thing in a world that had just collapsed. His voice, quiet, certain. You're not alone, Sarah. You'll never be alone. I promise. Remembered being 12, the first time she'd shot a rifle at distance, 500 meters, target practice. She'd missed by 3 feet. Felt like failure. Her grandfather had knelt beside her. You know what the difference is between missing and hitting? Mathematics. Just mathematics. You can learn mathematics. Anyone can. But having the patience to use it? That's rare. That's what makes you special. Remembered being 19. The snow cave test. 72 hours. Negative 40 degrees. No fire. No food. Just her and the cold and the voice in her head that sounded like her grandfather saying, "Hold the line, Sarah, just hold the line." She'd held it, came out frostbitten and hypothermic and changed. Came out knowing she could survive things that would kill other people. Came out knowing she was different, special, dangerous. Remembered being 23, her first real deployment. Afghanistan, observation post, spotting for a sniper team. The shot that changed everything. 1,200 meters, target acquired. Confirmed hostile, fire for effect. The target dropped, and Sarah felt nothing. No emotion, no horror, no guilt, just satisfaction that the mathematics had worked, that the training had paid off. Her grandfather had called that night, somehow knew. Sarah, I need you to promise me something. Promise me you'll feel it. Every shot, every death. The day you stop feeling it is the day you stop being human. And I didn't raise a weapon. I raised a person who happens to be very good at a terrible thing. Don't forget which one you are. She'd promised, kept that promise, even when it hurt, especially when it hurt. The plane landed at Andrews Air Force Base, ambulance waiting, 20-minute drive to Walter Reed. Sarah refused the stretcher, walked. Each step cost something. Her feet screamed. Her shoulder throbbed. Her damaged fingers hung useless at her side. She didn't care. 94 people were alive. She could walk 20 minutes. They brought her to hospice, 3rd floor, room 314. The nurse at the desk looked at her chart, looked at Sarah. Miss Mitchell, he's been waiting. Wouldn't let himself slip until you got here. Sarah pushed open the door and saw her grandfather for the first time in 6 months, saw what cancer had done. The man who'd been 200 pounds of muscle and certainty was now maybe 130. Skin hanging loose, eyes sunken, but awake, alert, waiting. Sarah, his voice was a whisper, but it was him, still him. She crossed to the bed, took his hand, the hand that had taught her to hold a rifle, to calculate wind, to be patient, to be deadly. The hand that had held hers at her mother's funeral, that had bandaged her wounds. that had shaped her into something the world didn't have words for. "I'm here, grandfather. I held the line." "I know, child. I watched. Every shot, every moment. I watched you become. You became everything I hoped, and nothing I feared. I killed Rashid, your first student. I killed him." Webb's eyes filled. "I know, and I'm sorry. Sorry I put you in that position. Sorry I trained two people who ended up on opposite sides. Sorry that the last thing I taught you was how to kill someone I loved." "Did you love him?" "Yes, the same way I love you. Different, but just as real. Rashid was. He was a good man who made bad choices, who let anger turn him into something I never intended. And you're a good woman who made hard choices, who let compassion keep you human. That's the difference. That's why I chose you." Sarah's voice broke. "It doesn't feel like being chosen. It feels like being used." "I know, and I'm sorry for that too. Sorry I couldn't find another way. Sorry that my legacy is teaching people to kill, even when they kill to protect." He coughed, the terrible, wet sound. "Sarah, listen. You need to hear this. Need to understand. I'm listening. You're not done. This isn't the end of your story. It's the middle, the messy, painful middle. What comes next, that's up to you. You can stay a weapon, keep taking contracts, keep solving problems with a rifle, disappear into the dark and become the ghost everyone thinks you are. Or you can become something else. What else is there? A teacher, like I was, but better, because you'll teach them what I couldn't. You'll teach them when not to shoot, when to walk away, when to let someone live even when you could kill them. That's the lesson I never mastered, the lesson Rashid never learned. But you can learn it, you can teach it." Sarah shook her head. I can't face students, can't look at kids who want to be like me, because being like me means this." She held up her damaged hand. "Means waking up every night seeing faces. Means carrying weight that never gets lighter." "Then teach them that. Teach them the cost, so they understand, so they choose with open eyes, so they don't end up like Rashid or me, men who thought violence was an answer when really it's just a question that keeps asking itself." He squeezed her hand, weak now, the strength fading. "Sarah, you're going to have PTSD, probably already do. You're going to have nightmares, flashbacks, moments where you can't tell if you're there or here. That's normal. That's the price. But you can't let it define you. Can't let 4 deaths matter more than 94 lives. Promise me you'll try to heal." "I promise. And promise me you'll find someone, not to train, to love, to build a life with. Someone who sees Sarah Mitchell, not the phantom. Someone who reminds you that you're human, that you're more than what I made you. I don't know if that person exists. They do. You just have to let them see you, the real you, the woman who cries, who hurts, who loves. Not just the weapon, the woman inside the weapon." The monitors started changing, heart rate dropping, oxygen falling. The nurse stepped in, looked at the numbers, looked at Sarah. "We need to—" "He's going into cardiac failure." Webb squeezed Sarah's hand one more time. "I'm proud of you, so proud. Tell them, the students, tell them the best shot is the one you don't take. Tell them I learned that too late. But you can learn it in time. I love you, grandfather. I love you too, child, so much. Now I can rest. Now I can let go. You're safe. You're alive. That's all I needed." His eyes closed, the monitors flatlined. And Colonel Marcus Webb, who trained killers for 40 years and spent his last breath trying to create a teacher, died holding his granddaughter's hand. Sarah sat there for an hour, just sat, holding his hand as it went cold. As the body that had housed one of the most brilliant tactical minds of his generation became just a body, just empty flesh. The man gone, the teacher gone, the grandfather gone. When she finally left the room, Stone was waiting in the hallway. Reeves was with him. Cross, Emma Cole, a dozen soldiers from Fort Sentinel who'd flown in to pay respects to the man who'd saved them by sending his granddaughter into hell. They stood when Sarah emerged. Stone stepped forward. Mitchell, we're so sorry. Sarah looked at them. 94 lives her grandfather had saved by spending hers. 94 people who would grow old, have children, build lives. Because one old man had made the hardest calculation in the world. One life for 94. His granddaughter for strangers. He asked me to teach, she said quietly, to become an instructor, to pass on what he taught me. Will you? Stone asked. I don't know. I don't know who I am without him. Don't know if I can face students, if I can look at young soldiers and tell them how to do what I did without breaking them the way I'm broken. Reeves stepped forward, the lieutenant who'd called her a girl with a backpack, who'd walked through a kill zone trusting her to save him, who'd spent 4 days writing "check your assumptions" in a notebook like a prayer. Miss Mitchell, my daughter was born yesterday. Sarah Ann Reeves. 7 pounds, 4 ounces. Perfect. And the first thing I'm going to teach her, the first lesson, is that the most dangerous people are the quiet ones, the small ones, the ones everyone underestimates. I'm going to teach her that because of you. Sarah felt something crack, not break. Crack. Like ice thawing, like winter turning toward spring. Lieutenant, you don't have to name your daughter after me. I know, but I want to. I want her to have a name that means something. That reminds me every day to check my assumptions, to see people as they are, not as I think they are. That's worth remembering. Stone handed Sarah a card. Fort Benning, Sniper School. They're holding a position, instructor. If you want it, no pressure, no timeline, just know the job is there when you're ready. Sarah took the card, looked at it. Fort Benning, where her grandfather had taught for 20 years, where he'd shaped generations of snipers, where she could, maybe, continue what he'd started, but better, wiser, with the lessons he'd learned too late. I need time, she said, need to figure out how to live with this, how to sleep, how to wake up without seeing their faces, how to be Sarah Mitchell instead of the Phantom of Kandahar. Take all the time you need, Stone said. We'll be here when you're ready. They left. One by one, paying respects, offering condolences, promising to remember. Sarah stood in the hallway and felt the weight of it all. 4 deaths, 94 lives, 1 grandfather, 1 legacy, 1 question. What do you do when you're a weapon trying to become a person? 6 months later, Sarah Mitchell stood in front of 40 students at Fort Benning Sniper School, 27 years old, 5'6", 122 pounds, having never quite gained back all the weight she'd lost on that Texas ridge. Brown hair pulled back, gray eyes scanning the room, 3 fingers on her left hand that didn't quite work right, 7 toes that had no feeling, a shoulder that ached when it rained, and a mission. The students looked at her the way students always looked at instructors, skeptical, measuring, wondering if this small woman had anything to teach them. Several of the male students smirked. Sarah saw it, remembered standing at Fort Sentinel and seeing the same smirks, hearing the same doubts. She didn't address it, just began. My name is Sarah Mitchell. My grandfather, Colonel Marcus Webb, taught at this school for 20 years. He trained over 200 snipers. 53 of them are dead now, some in combat, some by their own hand, because he taught them to kill, but he never taught them how to live with it. That's what I'm here to fix. The room went quiet. The smirks died. 6 months ago, I eliminated 4 targets at Fort Sentinel, Texas. Average range, 1,800 meters. Longest shot, 3,218 meters. Time and position, 16 hours. Conditions, -30 degrees, 50-mile-per-hour winds. I was shot once. Survived stage 2 hypothermia, rhabdomyolysis, severe dehydration. Lost 11 pounds. Got permanent nerve damage in 3 fingers and 7 toes. Development PTSD that kept me awake for 3 weeks straight. She held up her left hand, showed them the fingers that didn't move. This is what precision costs. This is what perfect shooting requires. And if you think I'm telling you this to brag, you're wrong. I'm telling you this so you understand, so you choose with open eyes, so you don't end up 27 years old, standing in front of a classroom, wondering if you're a person or just a weapon someone else built. Emma Cole, now Corporal Cole, sat in the front row. She'd requested transfer to Benning specifically to take Sarah's course. She raised her hand. "Ma'am, at Fort Sentinel you saved 94 lives. Doesn't that make it worth it?" Sarah looked at her, really looked at her, saw the young private who'd brought her ammunition, who'd watched her bleed, who'd seen the cost before anyone else. "Does it make it worth it?" Sarah repeated. "I don't know, Corporal. Ask me in 10 years. Ask me when I've had 10 years of nightmares. 10 years of seeing 4 faces every time I close my eyes. 10 years of wondering if there was another way, a better way. A way that didn't require me to become something my mother wouldn't recognize." She turned to the board, wrote one sentence in precise, mechanical handwriting. "The best shot is the one you don't take." That's the lesson, the only lesson that matters. My grandfather taught me to shoot at 3,000 meters, but his last words to me were about not shooting, about choosing, about understanding that every trigger pull is a decision that echoes. That carrying 4 deaths is harder than carrying 4 kills, because deaths have faces, families, histories, and you carry all of it forever. A male student, Baker, mid-20s, raised his hand. "Ma'am, with respect, we're training to be snipers. Our job is to take the shot. If we don't, people die." You're right, Baker. Sometimes people die because you don't shoot. But people also die because you do shoot. The question is, which choice can you live with? Which choice lets you sleep? Which choice lets you stay human instead of becoming a weapon that walks and talks but doesn't feel anymore? She walked to the window, looked out at the range, at the targets set up at various distances, at the place where her grandfather had taught hundreds of students the mathematics of death. "I'm not here to teach you how to shoot. You'll learn that from other instructors. I'm here to teach you how to choose, how to live with your choices, how to carry the weight without letting it crush you, how to be a protector instead of just a killer." She turned back. My grandfather's first student was named Rashid Azari. Brilliant, dedicated, 34 confirmed kills fighting for his people. My grandfather was proud of him, loved him. Rashid was everything a teacher could want, except for one thing. Rashid never learned when to stop. Never learned that there's a difference between protecting and destroying. Never learned that being good at killing doesn't mean you should keep killing. And it destroyed him, turned him into something my grandfather never intended. A weapon without a conscience, a killer without a cause. The room was absolutely silent. 40 students processing something they hadn't expected. Not a lecture on ballistics, a lecture on humanity. "I killed Rashid 6 months ago, 1,130 meters. Perfect wind reading, perfect shot. He died instantly. And I have to live with that. Have to live with knowing I killed my grandfather's first student to save his last students. Have to live with wondering if there was another way. If I'd been smarter, better, wiser, could I have ended that situation without ending his life?" She picked up a rifle from the demonstration table. M110SASS, the same platform she'd used at Fort Sentinel. This is a tool, just a tool. It's not good or evil. It's not hero or villain. It's metal in physics and mathematics. What makes it good or evil is the person holding it, the choices they make, the weight they're willing to carry. You're going to learn to use this tool with incredible precision. But I'm going to teach you something more important. I'm going to teach you that precision without wisdom is just efficient murder. Emma raised her hand again. Ma'am, how do we know when to shoot and when not to? Sarah smiled, small, sad. The smile of someone who'd asked herself that question 1,000 times and still didn't have a complete answer. You don't, Corporal. Not always. Sometimes it's clear, sometimes it's muddy. But here's what I can tell you. If you're shooting to prove something, don't shoot. If you're shooting because you're angry, don't shoot. If you're shooting because it's easy, don't shoot. Only shoot when not shooting means someone innocent dies. And even then you carry the weight. You don't get to feel good about it. You don't get to celebrate. You just do the math. Count the lives saved versus the lives taken. And you try to make sure the equation balances toward protection. She set down the rifle, walked back to the board, wrote another sentence. Talent kills. Wisdom protects. My grandfather taught talent. I'm going to teach wisdom. And if you think wisdom means being soft, being hesitant, being weak, you're in the wrong class. Wisdom means being strong enough to choose difficult paths, being disciplined enough to say no when every instinct says yes, being human enough to feel the cost and pay it anyway when there's no other option. Baker spoke again. Ma'am, what if we're not as gifted as you? What if we don't have thermal invisibility or wind reading or whatever made you able to do what you did? Sarah looked at him. Good. Gifts make you dangerous. Discipline makes you great. And compassion makes you worth following. My gifts? They're accidents of biology, low body temperature, hypersensitive hearing. Things I inherited from my mother who died because of them. Things that make me good at hiding and shooting and surviving cold. But they didn't make me a good sniper. Discipline did. Patience did. My grandfather's teaching did. And most important, the choice to use these gifts to protect instead of destroy. That's what matters. Not the gifts, the choices. She picked up a photo from her desk. Colonel Marcus Webb, young, maybe 40, in uniform, before cancer, before death, before his last student killed his first student. My grandfather died 6 months ago. His last words to me were, "The best shot is the one you don't take." He'd spent 40 years teaching people to kill, and his dying lesson was about not killing, about choosing, about being human. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to teach that lesson, trying to make sure you don't end up like Rashid, or like me, broken people who are good at a terrible thing and have to figure out how to be more than that. The class ended. Students filed out. Most looked thoughtful. Some looked disturbed. A few looked angry. Sarah didn't care. She wasn't here to make them comfortable. She was here to make them think, to plant seeds that might keep them human when the world tried to turn them into weapons. Emma stayed behind. Ma'am, can I ask you something personal? Go ahead, Corporal. Do you regret it? Fort Sentinel? The 4 shots? The cost? Sarah was quiet for a long moment, looked at her damaged hand, at the fingers that would never work right again, at the physical evidence of 16 hours that had saved 94 lives and broken 1. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that the world is broken enough that people like me have to exist. I regret that my grandfather spent his last months watching me become the thing he'd spent years trying to prevent. But do I regret the choice? 94 people are alive. Corporal Nate Fielding met his daughter. Lieutenant Reeves has a child named Sarah. Commander Stone gets to retire someday. So no, I don't regret the choice, but I carry the cost, and I'll carry it forever. Does it get easier? No, but you get stronger. That's not the same as easier. It's just different. You learn to carry more weight. Your capacity grows, but the weight never shrinks. Emma nodded, started to leave, stopped at the door. Ma'am, for what it's worth, I'm glad you're teaching. I'm glad someone who understands the cost is the one teaching the next generation. My grandfather taught me to check my assumptions. You're teaching me something deeper. You're teaching me that being good at something terrible doesn't mean you have to keep doing it, that you can choose to become something else, that weapons can become teachers, that broken people can still build things instead of just destroying them. Sarah felt something in her chest. Not warmth exactly, but less cold, like winter turning toward spring. Thank you, Corporal. That means more than you know. Emma left. Sarah sat at her desk and looked at her grandfather's photo. Wondered what he'd think, if he'd be proud, if he'd understand that she was trying to be the teacher he'd been too late in becoming, trying to save the next Rashid before anger turned him into a weapon, trying to build protectors instead of killers. Her phone buzzed. Text from Stone. How was the first class? She typed back slowly, her damaged fingers making it awkward. Hard. Important. I think I can do this. I think I can be what he wanted me to be. He'd be proud. We all are. Sarah set down the phone, looked out the window at Fort Benning, at the ranges where her grandfather had taught, at the place where she'd learned to shoot, to calculate, to be patient, to be deadly. And now to teach others to be wise. She picked up her grandfather's rifle, the one with the engraving, MW2SM, hold the line, ran her thumb over the letters, felt the weight of legacy, of responsibility, of choosing to be more than what you were built to be. I'm holding it, grandfather, she whispered. I'm holding the line, just a different line than you drew. A line between weapon and human, between killer and teacher, between what I was and what I'm trying to become. I don't know if I'll make it. Don't know if I can stay on the right side, but I'm trying. Every day, I'm trying. She set down the rifle, pulled out her lesson plan for tomorrow's class. Subject, the psychology of restraint. How to decide when the mission is more important than the shot. How to live with not pulling the trigger when everything in your training says pull it. It was the hardest lesson to teach. Harder than ballistics, harder than wind reading, harder than anything physical. Because it required students to be more than accurate. It required them to be wise. And wisdom was something that couldn't be taught directly, only learned through experience, through failure, through the particular pain that comes from making the wrong choice and living with it. Sarah Mitchell was 27 years old. She'd killed 4 people, saved 94, lost her grandfather, found a purpose, broken her body, started healing her mind, and now she stood at a crossroads. Would she stay a weapon or become a teacher? Could she be both? Could anyone? She didn't know, but she knew she'd try, because that's what holding the line meant. Not staying in position behind a rifle, but staying in position between the world that made weapons and the people who didn't have to become them. Standing in the gap, teaching the next generation, hoping that some of them learn the lesson her grandfather learned too late. The best shot is the one you don't take. And if you have to take it, if there's no other choice, then you carry the weight. You feel the cost. You stay human. You don't let the weapon consume the person. That was the lesson. That was the legacy. That was what Colonel Marcus Webb had spent his last breath trying to teach. And Sarah Mitchell, his granddaughter, his last student, his greatest success and his deepest regret, would spend the rest of her life trying to pass it on. One student at a time, one lesson at a time, one choice at a time. Holding the line between what we are and what we could become, between the weapon and the teacher, between death and wisdom. And maybe someday she'd figure out which one she was. But until then, she'd keep teaching, keep trying, keep choosing to be human, even when being a weapon was easier. Because that's what her grandfather had asked. And Sarah Mitchell always kept her promises. Always.